Hello and welcome to today's Wyoming Community Navigator Program webinar. We are so glad you've joined us for today's presentation. My name is Kaylee Achi, the market researcher with the Wyoming SBDC Network. I'll be your facilitator today, working behind the scenes through the chat or questions function to assist you the best that I can with any tough technical difficulties or questions that you may have. There will also be a part where Michelle may do some coaching, so I will also look for any raised hands or anyone who may want to unmute so that you can talk directly to her.
Super excited to be here. Thank you, Kaylee.
So the Wyoming Community Navigator pilot program is funded by the U.S. Small Business Administration and utilizes the Wyoming Entrepreneurial Support Network to reduce barriers all businesses often face, including those owned by groups such as veterans, women, and those from rural communities and communities of color. The Wyoming Community Navigator program uses a hub and spoke model to pursue its goals. Through their collective efforts, the hub and spokes provide training, mentorship, access to capital, and access to other resources to help business owners build resiliency and ultimately be the driving force behind Wyoming's economic recovery. The Wyoming SBDC Network is a University of Wyoming program available to all residents in the state and funded by the Wyoming Business Council and U.S. Small Business Administration. We provide no-cost confidential advising and technical assistance to all Wyoming entrepreneurs and small business owners. Wyoming SBDC Network advisors are located throughout the entire state. They not only help new businesses get started, but also help current owners with growth, reinvention, exiting, and recovering from challenges in their business. Implementation and Accountability Workshop for Small Business Owners is presented by Michelle Talbert. Michelle Talbert is a relationship marketing strategist and consultant who curates inclusive, safe spaces for entrepreneurs and corporate clients to excel in business by creating mutually beneficial, ethical relationships. She's been featured in Forbes, The Washington Post, and other major publications. Michelle hosts workshops and events for women in business to connect, collaborate, and create cash flow unapologetically. In January 2020, Michelle founded Her Power Space, a women-forward, men-welcoming boutique co-working space near Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And soon after opening, in response to the devastating impact of COVID-19 on the small business community, she created the No Small Business Left Behind series, which has highlighted approximately 150 small businesses to date. So let's hear from Michelle. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and it'll take her just a moment. She'll pull up that presentation. And again, I will be kind of behind the scenes, just look out for questions and things like that.
Thank you so much, Kaylee. I am so excited to be here. That popped out, didn't it?
Yep.
So you get to see my messy desktop. We'll try this one again. Okay, great. Thank you so much, Kaylee. I'm really excited to be here. Today, we're going to stop getting ready to get ready and do it already. If you are in the place, you are ready to get some stuff done. We're going to talk about accountability. We're going to talk about getting things done in community, a word about procrastination, and an invitation to continue what we start today. So I can't tell if there's a little lag. Nope. Did you know that the second Friday of January is officially called Quitter's Day? And what that means is that 80% of Americans have stopped trying to achieve the resolutions they set on the first of the year. And by December 31st, only about 8% of all folks who set a resolution will actually see it through to completion. So in terms of today, we want to talk about what is your intention, right? To mind your business, to get some things done. And to that end, there is a handout that I've brought along that you can download. You can fill it out on the screen. It doesn't require any email or anything like that to register. It's a simple PDF download. And the most important thing about this download is that you're able to take notes on it. You can print it out, use it as frequently as you would like. Take the information, my promise to you, which we'll get to in a minute, as well as your promise to yourself of one thing that you will implement within 24 hours. Within 24 hours, you'll be implementing one thing from this today's time together. As Kaylee just mentioned, I have a co-working space. One quick second. I apologize. Someone just walked in and I don't have help. One quick second.
Okay, and while Michelle's doing that, if anyone has any difficulty downloading that handout, which will be in the handout section on your screen, if you do have any difficulty, go ahead and put it in the chat and I can get that back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, this is a highly interactive opportunity for us to be together today. My intention is that you leave with a shift in your mindset, some implementable resources. That word implementation, accountability, right? Your intention, what you plan to implement from the worksheet, from today's time together, and community. So I'm not sure how active or if you're able to see each other's comments, but I always suggest that if you are attending an online webinar, a workshop, something of that nature, typically the people who are in the chat who are also attending virtually are possible peers for you and people for you to connect with. And so, Kaylee, are they able to talk to each other in the chat, or is it only to us?
It is only to us, but what I can do is as I see them come in, I can go ahead and read them out just so we can all hear them.
Awesome. I love that. I love that. I love that. Anyone who comes to any of my events, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, knows that it's really important to me that you as an entrepreneur get access to not only people who are at the front of the room, but the people who are in the room with you, which goes right into who I am. Kaylee, thank you for that introduction. My name is Michelle Talbert, also known as your accountability buddy. And what I do is I create spaces where solopreneurs and side hustlers can go from those feelings of isolation and confusion in your business up at 2 a.m. trying to figure out WordPress or Squarespace or Wix or whatever that looks like, to having a spirit of clarity and community to move forward and achieve your goals. So I don't know about any of you, but you may say that I have in the past been on team doing all the things. Do we have any, like, throw up some, I don't know, can you throw emojis up? Whatever you can do in the chat, do it. And then Kaylee, tell me about it. I want to know that I'm talking to the right people. You are in the right place if you have ever felt like, oh my gosh, I am doing all the things, and maybe to varying levels of success, right? And then have you ever thought to yourself, oh, I'm such a procrastinator, right? So I'm going to ask you for our time together that you allow me to suspend if that is a reality for you or something that you think, and we're going to talk about what procrastination really looks like. I graduated from high school when I was 17 years old. I went straight into the federal government job force and started working as an administrative assistant. At 18, I met who would become my first husband. At 19, I had my son. At 20, I had my daughter. By the time I had my 22nd birthday, I was a mother of 2 kids, basically in diapers because he was a little late to potty train. And I was divorced, right? And not surprising. However, what I did have was community college classes by night, working during the day, raising the kids. After 10 years, we transferred up to Cornell University, and that's my son and my daughter getting ready to walk across the stage with me to get our bachelor's degree. We then went on to Philadelphia to get my law degree is mine. That one's all mine, right? And that's us now. And I then went back down to Washington, D.C., where I practiced corporate law and realized that after 16 years of achievement, 16 years of getting things done in terms of my education, moving around the country and the world with the kids, I was not fulfilled in my corporate legal profession. And so I ended up co-authoring a book and getting on Twitter using social media. And because of social media back in 2011, I was able to attract Ebony Magazine editor, and they featured us. And from that point on, a social media maven was born. I lit up inside. So I was working as a lawyer at the firm, but I was out and I was writing for Black Enterprise. And over the years, after a couple more years and actually transitioning out of full-time practice, was invited to President Obama's White House for his second to last State of the Union address. And all of these opportunities came from being out and about, connecting with people, writing, having these amazing experiences. And so I created a community of other women entrepreneurs and solopreneurs and side hustlers where you work on your day job 9 to 5, and you work on your day dreams from 5 to midnight, which landed me here in South Florida. And in 2020, January specifically, 2020, I ripped the bows and off the doors here in the co-working space that I'm sitting in, that you can tell is active. And then by 2021, right? It was a mess. $10,000 behind in rent, stressed, exhausted. I went to Cornell undergrad, but then I said, well, let me find out about this women's entrepreneurship certificate that they launched. And just like you, sitting in webinars and workshops and trying to figure out how to do business, right? Because I had been doing business online and social media, but as soon as you get keys and have rent and have these other obligations, it's a very different story. And what ended up happening is, because of the experiences that I had, I started being asked to teach and speak and do workshops like we're doing, and then led me to realize, okay, these are great programs. What happens after it's done? What happens to the motivation that you need and to the care and the ability to get things done when you're in program, right? And it could be 12 weeks, it could be 3 months, it could be, 6 months, whatever long that period is. And the women who were coming to me after their graduations were saying, I still need more help. And that's when I created the 5 M's to building your muscles. And that is Ernestine Shepard. She is, in fact, 87 years old. She'll be 88 in June of this year. And so the 5 M's to building your muscle to get things done, and we're going to walk through these today, are motivate, match, master, money, and more, please. Are there any questions yet? Do any of you consider yourself a procrastinator, right? You could drop a yes, no, not me at all, or that's why I'm here, girl. Why are you asking me crazy questions, right? Okay, so there is a great book by a woman named Gretchen Rubin, and it's called The 4 Tendencies. And I've been talking about this book for years, teaching on this book for years, because like I said, I used to be a member of Team Do All the Things. I too used to have that thought, I'm a procrastinator, right? And what I found was that through reading her book, we have 4 types of motivating factors that she calls our 4 tendencies. And so I'm going to walk you through them. And as you hear yourself, drop the number, because this I do want to hear, Kaylee. Drop the number when we get, after we're finished with 4, drop the number where you feel you fall. Okay, so I'm going to give you the brief descriptions of these motivating factors to get things done. The first is the upholder. That's number one. And what that looks like is what we see and are told is the typical way to be, that if you're not like this, you are a procrastinator. These are the Kobe Bryants. These are the people who have both the expectations of others that they're able to meet. So if they were given a deadline for things to be done on a certain time period, they get it done. If they set a goal for themselves internally, they get it done, right? So if we don't fall in that category, especially with regard to inner expectations, we get called procrastinators. We get called people who don't get things done. So, but that's only one way to be, right? The second is called an obliger. And so the obliger's characteristics are that if someone gives them a deadline, they'll meet that deadline because they don't want to let someone else down. They want to be sure to show up for people who are depending on them. They resist their own goals. So what this looks like, and this is one of my favorite ways to describe the obliger. So drop a 2 if you're an obliger, 1 so far if you heard yourself as an upholder, 2 if you're an obliger. An obliger, they meet, like I said, the external expectations, but when it comes to, say, going to the gym, at 5 a.m. when that alarm clock goes off, if they've made a resolution or a promise to themselves that they're going to go to the gym at 5 a.m., they may snooze, right? They may not go. However, if their gym buddy, so if they have a buddy who they're going to the gym with, gives them their sneaker. So if I go to the gym with Kaylee the day before and we say we're going to meet back here at 5 a.m. tomorrow, and she hands me her sneaker and my alarm clock goes off at 5 a.m. the next day, I know that Kaylee needs her sneaker. So I'm going to go to the gym for her, not for me. That's the obliger, right? Then 3 is the questioner. Now with the questioner, if someone tells them to do something, it has to make sense to them. They're questioning, okay, you're telling me don't touch the stove, but why? Because it's hot and you'll burn yourself, right? So you can't even end with because it's hot. You have to say because you'll burn yourself, right? So they don't want to conform unless they have a good reason to. But if it makes sense to them internally, then they do it. So that's number 3. And finally, 4, they don't want to do it whether you tell them to do it or they tell themselves to do it, which is one of the more difficult, challenging folks, but they're called the rebels, right? And with the rebel, it's sort of like they almost do the opposite of what it is you ask them to do. So if you want your child who may be a rebel to do something, you'll say, oh, don't put these toys away today, right? And then they'll pick up the toys, right? So this is going to be important as we're going through our conversation, because again, we're moving away from this concept of possibly being a procrastinator or not being self-motivated or any of the other negative sort of stereotypes and connotations that society has, and saying, oh, wait, no, I fall into one of these 4 categories, right? And so we have the upholder. If you're a number 1, put a number 1 in the chat. If you are an obliger, a number 2, put a number 2 in the chat. If you are a questioner, a number 3, put a number 3 in the chat. And if you're a rebel, a number 4, put a number 4 in the chat. And Kaylee, can you tell me the what you're seeing, if you're seeing?
I sure can. You have 1, 2, and 1, 3. And then also a question of whether you can say the name of the book one more time.
Sure, it is Gretchen Rubin, The 4 Tendencies. And if it's helpful to folks, if you want, at the end, what I can do is if I'll share my contact information and I'll send you a list of any of the resources that I say or anything like that. I'm happy to do that. If you could give me one quick second, my apologies. Nope. This has never happened.
Okay, so we have another person that says they go between different types, which is pretty interesting. So is there anyone else who thinks they want to put in what they are, 1 through 4, got 2s and 3s, and then some different types? Is there any ones?
Every time I go to share my screen. Sorry about that. So no upholders, everybody's obligers and questioners. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yep, and then one person who says that they go between the different types.
Exactly. And I think that that's exactly right. And that's what takes us then to match. And so what you're going to want to do is now put systems in place to match what you now know about yourself. And I'm going to give you another resource. It's called Atomic Habits, and it's an excellent book. And I don't think it's Adam Grant. I always forget it's Cleary, but it's called Atomic Habits. And one of the habits that is a really great habit that you can now implement because you know how you show up is something called habit stacking. So this book gives you loads of options of ways to put in place systems that match up with now what you know about what it takes for you to be motivated to move forward. And so by example, I can give an example from my own journey. There's something called toner for those of you who know. You put this on your face. So it's a 3-step process. You might wash your face, put toner on your face, and then put a cream on your face. So I'm in my mid-50s. I wasn't doing pretty much any of that except the washing of the face and on the go for a very long time. And so about a year ago, I wanted to start using toner just to kind of even out some blotches, right? And so I was not used to doing that every day. And so I would wash my face and put the cream on my face, go about my day, and then realize, oh man, I forgot the middle step. So doing something as simple as putting the toner in front of the cream in the medicine cabinet, because I would be reaching for the cream, by putting the thing I wanted to use before I used the thing I was already had a habit to do, I then made sure that I used it. Does that make sense? Like, drop something in the chat. Do you follow that? Do you see that concept of habit stacking and how that can be something that can really be helpful to you when you're matching up a system to how you know you need to operate? Any questions on that? I want to be clear because then everything that we're going to talk about builds on the next thing.
I'm not seeing any questions yet, but as I do, I will unmute myself and let you know.
Okay, thank you. So what you want to do, like I said, is then match a system. So choose the system that works for you. If you're going to the gym, get your friend Sneaker. Have an accountability partner, someone who will call you. Give them a specific date certain that you'll have a thing accomplished. If you're an obliger, you're going to want to show up for that person. And even though it's for you, your mind works in a way that says this person is depending on me. I don't want to let this person down. I don't want to show up and be embarrassed by not having done the thing that I said I would do. Right? If you're a questioner, make sure that you really understand why you're doing it. That's Simon Sinek, right? What is your why? If you are a questioner, you have to have a very clear why for when you do the actions. Even if you set a goal, you probably have to go a little deeper. And that's where the mastery comes in. So now we want to ensure that the system that we've set up by matching the system to our tendency, right, and our motivator is now going to be replicatable day after day after day after day. So making sure that you put in place something as simple as putting the toner in front of the face cream. Now, right, it's after a few months of doing that, they don't even have to be in the same cabinet for me anymore because now I automatically know I need to put the toner on my face. And so what they used to say was that it takes about 90 days to create a habit. It's a little bit more skewed and a little all over the place, that 90-day mark is no longer necessarily so. You may find that certain habits you're able to create within a 28-day period, and other habits can take up to 4 to 6 months. So it really is up to you to ensure that the system is in place and that you are putting it in a way that enables you to consistently do the thing that you say you want to do. The next M is money. So we're talking about getting things done. We're talking about goal setting and accountability and productivity and implementation. When it comes to implementation and productivity, many of us who are solopreneurs, drop a 1 if you're a solopreneur, drop a 2 if you have team. Many of us who are solopreneurs, it's very easy for us to fall in the trap of, I have to get it done, it has to be done, it has to be done by me. And what is something I would love to free you from, as well as the procrastination mindset piece, is that it doesn't always have to be done by you. If you have the money, and especially if you don't like whatever that goal is that moves the needle, that needs to be done in your business, hire someone else to do it. Because once you've determined that it is something that does definitely need to get done, then you can do sort of a cost benefit analysis of, do I have the time and not the money, right? Then we understand we're up at 2 a.m. working on our website. But if I have the money and can conserve the time, and even better, use the time in my business for activities that actually give me joy, that actually may bring in more revenue, increase our visibility, then put the money towards someone else doing it. But you've identified it as being important. Does that make sense for you?
It looks so, and it looks like we have a room full of solo entrepreneurs.
Okay, I thought so. I thought so. So I have the right people. And please get your questions ready, and let's really have, you'll be able to take yourself off of mute, or Kaylee will be able to take you off of mute as well, so that you can talk. Where the goal, like it says in the promise to you, right? If you looked at your sheet, what's the presenter's promise to me? In the synopsis for our time together, it says this is a highly interactive workshop, and you're supposed to bring a goal that you'd like to achieve, and we can workshop it together. So we have come to the end, which is more please. Now that you have determined what is your motivating factor, matching a system that meets your motivating factor, right? And then having the mastery, ensuring that you are putting in systems that enable you to make it a habit, determining if it's something that you have to do, or as the sound on TikTok used to say, get somebody else to do it. And then now we're going to replicate, because once we realize, and we're doing this for goals within our business, so we're talking about money-making endeavors in this context, but of course this is applicable to face cream and toner as well. But once we have this system in place in our business, we should then be able to scale the system to ensure that if this is something especially that drives revenue or increases efficiencies within our business, we can now have that stand up on its own legs, because we've created a system around it where we know it will get done, and get done consistently, and get done well. Now it's time to move on to the next thing that you want to knock off of your list. And that's where I go back to the whole question of team doing all of the things. Because one of the biggest mistakes that many of us make as solopreneurs is doing too many things at once. And so it's not that you're a procrastinator, it's not that you're not motivated, it's that you're exhausted, because you're trying to hold all of the balls in the air at the same time. right? And what we're told in society is that if you are not doing a 4-hour work week, if you're not getting up at 3 a.m. and crowing with the roosters, and men and women even completely have different circadian rhythms. Men are on a 24-hour circadian rhythm, and we're on a 28-day rhythm. So there are literal days that are different for us throughout a month, right? And so society kind of tries to pressure us, especially women, to say, look, if you're not self-motivated, if you don't have Mamba mentality like Kobe did, and you're not like Serena, and they'll hold up another woman and say, this woman gets things done, what about you? The reality is you are getting things done. It just isn't necessarily having the impact that you would hope that it would have. And so by using this kind of framework, you can apply it to one thing, the most important thing at a time that you've identified in your business to enable you to move forward. Because the bottom line is one size does not fit all in terms of looking at time management, in terms of looking at productivity options. And so really have to have a very personal relationship and conversation with yourself, right? So did you know that when you set a goal, you're 10 times more likely than someone who hasn't set a goal to achieve it? And when you write your goal, you're 42% more likely to achieve it than someone who has not written it down. And then finally, when you share a goal, even if you're not an obliger, even if you're not that person who wants to show up for the other person, just across the board, when you share a goal with someone, an accountability partner, tell someone who's going to hold you accountable, you are 65% more likely to complete your goal. Some of you may have heard the African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone, and if you want to go far, go together. And it's a beautiful proverb. I have a tweak to it, and it's, if you want to go farther, faster, go with your squad, right? And what that looks like is having people in your community, business community, peer-to-peer, mentors, people who can pour into you and people who you can learn from. But as important is to have people who hold you accountable. And so now you know that we have this rich array of different types of people. We can then work with them together in community. Because once you understand what your tendency is, you can put people either in accountability with you as a solopreneur, but also as you begin to hire people for your team. That's part of the more please, right? That we can expand, that you're able to create systems and consistency around you that enable you to scale, not just grow. The difference being, when you grow, if you put $1 in and you get $1 out, if you scale, you put $1 in and you get $3 out. For the same level of input, you're getting bigger impact, right? And so now when you look to your team and how you think about who needs to come into your business and help you to move the needle forward, you can self-identify and say, oh, well, I'm a rebel. So that means I probably need to bring in an upholder, but we need to understand how to communicate with each other, because they're going to ensure that our deadlines get met. They're probably going to be the person who is the integrator, the person who is the manager, while I can be out here being a rebel and meeting people and being at networking events, if that makes sense, right? So I'm going to come back to, because I'm going to stop sharing screen and hopefully we can have a conversation. People can ask questions, come off of mute. I want to know, and this is the first question I'll ask in terms of, as you're thinking this through, what you plan to implement. Hopefully there was something that you took away, and we can talk about that, and let's get into what your own goals are right now. Because I know this was a lot of information, and I'm from New York and I tend to talk quickly. But I also, just here, you can write down this URL this coming Tuesday. Invite all of you. It's a totally free and open event to this peak performance conversation. And although Kanae is going to be focused on financial potential, she's really going to talk about how we can be peak performers in our lives. And I think, like, you know, saying Kobe, saying Serena, looking at Beyonce or other people who have excelled in their field, sometimes we feel less than. And I think it's really important that we understand that we can be peak performers as we are where we are in our own industry. And so any of you who would like to attend, please feel free to join us. And I am going to stop sharing screen and would love to hear from you. Did any of you bring any goals, any questions? We can start with if you plan to implement any of our conversation today.
Anyone that would like to come off mute, just let me know in the chat or raise your hand. And once I see that, I'll unmute you and you can talk directly to Michelle. Anne asked, for the moment where you resist outside expectations, how do you navigate that when the expectation is coming from someone we've hired? The requirement to keep them updated and included just makes me not want to do it.
Yeah, that's a big deal. So, Anne, I would ask you, what are you motivated by? So in the 1, 2, 3, 4, so did you feel that you fell into any one particular category when this comes up for you? Because that's a great question, and I want to understand your side of it as well, so we can set that up for success.
And says it
You can
varies.
take.
But yeah, and if you do want to get unmuted, just let me know and I can
Yeah, we
unmute.
can have
But otherwise, we can go through the chat.
I purposely left time for us to do this. And if not, no worries. She said it varies.
Yes.
Okay, so if you know that you've hired someone who needs to be updated, what you and that person can do is determine, because let me take a step back. This is your business and you've hired someone. So arguably you've decided that this is someone who in their capacity is going to move the business forward for you. So even at your most rebel self, if you want this business to be able to move forward, then you're going to have to say, okay, I know that I want this business to move forward in this direction, and this is the person who I believe will get me there. So then what you and that person, what you and she can do is sit down and say, let's talk about what the minimum level of information you need is to move forward, because she may be coming from that obliger place where in her mind, she needs all of the information. But if you and she can come up with both a level of how much information she needs to be able to do her job in the way that moves the needle for you, and also the frequency with which she needs to receive it. And then at some point, you can ask yourself, is this data or information that she can somehow get from another system in your business? So does it have to come directly from you, or is there something that you can incorporate into how you're doing your day-to-day activities that will enable her, for instance, a dashboard, right? My VA and I have a dashboard system where I'll put certain data in, she'll put certain data in, so I'll know what's there if I have a question about sort of how many mailing address signups we have, or how many other kinds of things, bits and pieces on the dashboard. And then she may need to look to the dashboard for information that I'm putting in there, maybe with regard to revenue or something like that, to help with our budgeting, getting numbers to the CPA, whatever that looks like. So we're both working off of a system, but we pull out what we need, but we know that the overarching system is for the health of the business. I don't know if that is helpful because I don't know enough about your business, but that could be a system that works for both of you, where it's not necessarily a real-time communication, but that she can pull what she needs from it.
And said, yes, thanks.
Okay, great. Any other questions? So one of the resources, I'm a resource girl, which means a lot of books, a lot of books. Another book that's an excellent read is called The No BS Small Business Book by Casey Graham, right? And so with that, that actually goes very well once you know a lot about yourself, like we've talked about from the Four Tendencies with Gretchen Rubin. And so with that book, what Casey does is take you down to that why, right? You get right to the core of what are you trying to build this business for? Why am I building this business? You know, he goes on to say that in his instance, he's building a business where his children, who are children now, so where his adult children would want to work, so if they chose to do so. So every decision he makes is with an eye toward, would I want my kid to work with that particular type of a manager? Would I want my kid to be in this kind of environment? Would I want my kid to be potentially subject to whatever is a decision that he's making now, even if it's possible that in the future neither one of his children ever want to work in his company or take over his business, because it's not about what they want, it's about what he's building. So for me personally, I'm building spaces where I know that women entrepreneurs can come and feel safe while they're exploring the answers and getting the resources that they need for their business, right? So I am building a business that our core value is safety and not having judgment. So once you begin to know, what is the business that I'm building? Why am I building this business? And then he'll walk you through sort of decision making around hiring and firing and all the other pieces that fall into what we have to do as solopreneurs. What other questions can I answer? Tell me why you came. I always want to know what makes someone sign up. Do you have a specific goal you're working on right now? Are you looking to tweak just how you get things done in your business? Because I can give you some additional resources and as well as some additional thoughts on that. And if you have any particular questions specifically.
Yep, so there's a question. How do you plan or manage to create habits if you work in a regular schedule? Like if you were working a full-time job, juggling kids, and starting a side hustle. I'm struggling with creating habits or systems in the chaos.
Yes. And so in that instance, first of all, seriously, God bless you, because it is not easy what you're doing. Your brain is being carved up in so many ways. You're getting interruptions. So when you're in the middle of a thought, there's a mommy or a daddy moment. All of these things. So please, I do not take that lightly. It is very hard what you're doing. And I also know that that's one of those places where the 4-hour work week, like how much earlier in the morning can you get up to get things done, right? And so with that, it becomes less necessarily about the time of day that something is being done, and more so about giving yourself multiple days maybe to get one particular thing that's important done. So give yourself a bigger range so that if something doesn't get done on Monday, you're not beating yourself up. But between Monday and Wednesday, you will have made 3 sales calls or you will have created that sales page. So giving yourself more time and fewer tasks, right? And one of the things that I walk my clients through, and I do workshops on a lot, is sort of thinking through that if you've seen the 4 quadrants in terms of urgency. So stepping back in your business and saying what is urgent and needs to be done now. It's important and it's urgent. Then you say, okay, well, what's important but non-urgent, right? What's non-important and urgent, and then what's neither important nor urgent. And if you can take what is your to-do list and actually see where it falls on those 4 quadrants, and then go back to our, remember, money, to the things that are non-urgent and non-important. That could be, 12 to 24 months out. We're not even thinking about that right now for our systems, right? But then if you can pull what you really believe needs to happen, and then if you have the money, hire for it. And if you don't have the money, give yourself a realistic time frame to have it done. And then say, okay, well, in a best case scenario on a Monday, I typically have X amount of time. Another option for that same scenario is to, if it's quantifiable, depending on what it is, say, well, I will have 30% of it done or 50% of it done by this date. Does that help you? Because sometimes giving yourself more time enables you to do it incrementally, even if it's less fulfilling than being able to get it all done at once. Enable yourself to do things in increment. If it's 15 minutes a day that I'm going to work on this task until completion, set that up in the way that works for you. Let me know if that's helpful or if you have follow-up questions to that.
They said yes, that was helpful.
Okay, great. Any other questions? Did anyone drop any information as to if they signed up for a specific goal, or if they signed up because they were looking to just get general productivity tips? Are there any particular issues you have where you'd like potential resources? You could tell I'm a Zoom girl. I'm so used to interact, like seeing people and interacting. I get spoiled by that interaction. But I really know that I want to be able to hit the nail on the head for you. If we start to talk about accountability, let's talk about the difference maybe between having a mastermind and having a peer accountability partner. And so let me know if that, I'll ask if that's helpful, but I'm going to keep talking just for anybody also who's watching the replay so we don't have the lag for them. So there are 2 ways that you can, there are more than 2 ways, but there are 2 general ways in business to be able to get that kind of accountability that you need. One is in a group setting, and the other one can be in a 1-to-1 or 1-to-3, but typically a 1-to-1 peer. And so in the group setting is what we term a mastermind, right? And this concept came out of a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, written back in the 20s. He was funded by Andrew Carnegie, to talk to the titans of business at the time to see if there were any success principles that were a commonality, a common thread through the most successful businessmen and women of the time. And so over a longitudinal, I think it was like 10 to 20 years time frame, Napoleon Hill spoke with a number of leaders, and what came up was a list of about 16 to 20 habits or traits that he saw that were common among the successful business owners that he spoke with. And one of those traits was having masterminds. And the concept of a mastermind, for anyone who's not familiar, is that you come together. They can be based on the same industry, different industries, non-competing, whatever that looks like. You get together, business people in a room, and each person is able to share about a particular challenge in their business, and the entire group weighs in, gives suggestions, potential connections to people in their network who can help them, and works on that problem. So instead of just having your own mind in isolation, you have the collective mastermind working on any individual's time at any given point. And with those, I host many masterminds where I guide the mastermind so that we ensure that everyone is able to have their challenge facilitated. And so everyone walks away with the benefit of the collective wisdom of the group. plus the facilitator as well. So that's a mastermind kind of concept. The other concept is the peer-to-peer. And in that regard, what you want to do is ensure that you and your peer have set expectations, how frequently you will meet. What is the platform on which you will meet? Is it a simple text in the morning? Sometimes my friend and I, my dear friend, when we were putting together our idea of the morning and we wanted to do meditation, 15 minutes, we just send each other a text when we're finished. I did it, and that's it. And that's our level of accountability, right? And so when you have that in place, you treat it again as if this is someone you hired, because it does matter that much to your business that they take it seriously and you take it seriously. And when you know what your motivators are, when you know what your tendencies are, then you're able to implement the proper peer, like Ann asked at the beginning, because she's hired someone who obviously is a different tendency than she is, which is great and what we need, but we need to have those conversations and ensure that we get the help we need from our peer. So setting the goals, how frequently you'll check in, the platform on which you'll check in, how they can help you, right? Because sometimes you just want them to say, did you do it? And other times you want to hear and be able to talk to them about maybe something, a challenge like in the mastermind concept, where you'll want to be able to talk to a peer about a challenge you're having. So that would also play into who's the peer that you choose to do that with. So there are structural pieces to it. There are also experiential pieces and knowledge and expertise that you want to ensure that they'll have. But those are two ways to ensure that you have accountability in place. And if you have challenges finding those kinds of scenarios, please feel free. My contact information is everywhere on the slides and in the materials, I believe. If not, I'm happy to share that, and Kaylee can share it.
Yep, Michelle, you have one more question in the
Sure.
chat. How do you do accountability if you reject external expectations? Like even if it's your own goal and then you do accountability, you duck and avoid your accountability buddy, even when it's your goal.
Yeah, you shouldn't have an accountability buddy. You should set up a different system. So that's where we talk about the matching of the system to your motivating factor. I mean, you're here, you showed up for this at 2 p.m. So whatever it was that made you say, I need to be in that room on that call, right? And it's a little meta because you're coming to ask the question, right? But whatever it was that made you not blow this off, there's something in you that's driving it. And that's why I say that's the Simon Sinek of it all. What is your why? Because you're going to have to ensure that every system you put in place makes you feel like you're getting closer to your purpose and your goal for you, for the reason that it's important for you.
Is there an example you can give of a system that may work for someone who has the internal expectations?
Yeah, so I think, well, this is, any system will work because you're not focused on the system, you're focused on the reason why you're doing it. And so if you can put in place anything that you believe gets you closer to your intended outcome. You see, you don't have a set way of doing things. You have a desire at your core that something is done. That's the tweak with the rebel, is that they have to be so clear about the reason behind it, much like the questioner, right? But they have to ensure that at some point you just say, I care about this too much to let this go by the wayside. So it is not about the system. It is believing that whatever system you put in place will get you closer to your intended goal. I have a friend who is also a solopreneur. He is an extreme rebel. However, he has a very strong desire to get his catering company up off the ground. And so even when he leans toward what we call procrastination, he then, in his case, he says, but I know that if I don't do this, I will not be able to open my catering company at the time that he's designated he wants to open it. So he has given himself a deadline, and that deadline is enough of a why for him to ensure that, okay, I might let it slip on Saturday, but I will get it done on Sunday because I have a deadline to meet. So as a rebel, you have to put something in place that aligns with your goal and stick to the fact that you want it done. Hopefully that's helpful. It's goal driven. It is literally goal meaning why, the why behind why you're doing it. Why do you want the thing done? Is what's going to have to drive you to be able to put in place a system that you believe gets you to that outcome. He believes that he has to cook at least 3 times a week to build the muscle to cook as much as he's going to have to cook when it comes to opening his catering business. And that's why he's doing it. He's doing it to build a muscle of cooking.
Perfect. We've got a little under 4 minutes left. If you do have any additional questions, we can respond to you through email. And of course, our presenter or one of our business advisors will be happy to contact you for those more in-depth questions. If you do have any last minute questions, feel free to put them in the chat.
Thank you all for your time. Again, please feel free to reach out to me. If you go to squad, herpowermoves.com/squad events, you can see what other, workshops and things like that. And you can also message me on that platform as well. And I'm happy to answer any additional questions. I love to interact with people, as you can tell. So thank you to the SBDC and also the Community Navigator program for inviting me. I always love talking to the folks in Wyoming. My son lives in Montana, so I am all about the Midwest. Yo, you're muted. You're muted, Kaylee.
There we go. If anyone has any additional questions, like I said, feel free to send us an email. Otherwise, that concludes today's webinar. I would like to thank everyone who participated, and feel free to join us on February 28th at noon for our next webinar, which will cover how to secure funding for your small business. I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their day, and we hope to see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.